Hey y'all, welcome back to Desiré Defined. Today we're going to talk about college. I'll start about like at the point when I started in high school. Like just going into applying for school, submitting my report card, transcripts and stuff like that, the schools that I applied to, and then just going to my experience during my years at my university. So let's get into it. First, we're going to start with getting in. Like getting into college, parents and educators and guidance counselors and just everyone has to be on one accord, especially for that student. So I was very, very lucky to have two highly educated parents. But I drove that bus when it came to really just getting into school, like from transcripts and requesting those, applying to schools, whether it's getting my application fee waived because I went to a Title I school here in Florida. So some of those tests and the things were waived because of our demographic. So going into just all of that is a lot, like from essays to recommendations and stuff like that. I applied to probably about 6 to 7 schools. So in high school, I desired to be an athlete for a little bit, just like, oh, we can go to the Olympics. Oh, we can go to, and be great in college and track. But when I became a senior, I was really honest with myself that I did not want to do that. I love it. I'm competitive. I'll always be an athlete. I'm getting back into weight training and weightlifting and things like that. But I know for sure I made a great decision because, yeah, I was just able to be myself fully, without sports. It takes a lot of your time. So I applied to Bethune-Cookman University. I applied to FIU, which is Florida International University. I applied to Florida Atlantic University, which is FAU. I applied to St. Leo. I applied to a school in like South Carolina that was looking at me for track. I applied to, I think I started my application for like USF, but I was like, okay, I think I applied for USF. I didn't finish my application for UF. I did not want to go to UF. My mom wanted me to go to University of Florida, but I'm like, no. So I applied for the University of Central Florida here in Orlando. So yeah, I did my due diligence and I think I got into every school that I applied to. UF, again, I did not even finish my application. My test scores weren't even where they should have been. But yeah, so I got rejected from UCF. That was the one school that I did get rejected from. And that's the one school that I wanted to go to. Both of my parents went to UCF, and like Evans had a UCF week where they came. I had met some people from different organizations, the Black Female Development Circle, some other organizations that came to present and table at the school. And it just so happened, you know, that those organizations, I was able to just look them up and see what they were all about, just from my perspective. And one day, after getting in the other schools, I was like, well, I'm going to have to pick. And I was between Bethune-Cookman University and St. Leo. Bethune-Cookman University because my grandmother went there. And then St. Leo because it was just a smaller school and it was not that far. And maybe FIU was definitely an option. But God put it on my heart to just check the UCF portal again. And when I went in the portal, I saw pending instead of rejected. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, okay, what does that mean? And then I received a letter saying that I got accepted in a summer program where we could take 2 classes and we could, then be admitted if we actually pass those classes. So I was just like, oh my gosh, I get to go to UCF. So I graduated high school literally in May, and I went to UCF in June. Like I literally moved in June into Hercules. Hercules is the dorm buildings or whatever that I was in. And I remember going to visit UCF and my dad showing me where he used to practice football, where he used to, live, where his dorms were. They still have his older dorms. So I was just elated to be at the school that both of my parents went to. And yeah, the rest is history. So, obviously started those classes, and summer was a ball. Like I did miss home because obviously you're away from home, not that far. I was like 30, 40 minutes away, but it just seemed a little like, oh my gosh, I'm by myself because I was. But I made friends fairly quickly. I made sure I was in class. I made sure I was doing my thing, just getting to know the campus, because UCF's campus is one of the largest campuses in the country. So getting to know UCF's campus and walk the campus, because I didn't have a car at the time, it was a lot. So yeah, it was just great getting to know what organizations were on campus, who's who, just from Black staff and faculty, standpoint. I always try to, notice and pick up on people that I know are my people, and also the different resources that UCF provides. So they have a little bit of everything from free scantrons, like for tests, or, library hours extremely late, or, safer clubs around the school rather than going downtown when, like, you know what I'm saying? We're 17. I was 17 at the time, 17, 18, 19. And you shouldn't be straying away from your area. So that was my experience getting into UCF. I want to definitely talk about just like my first days, my first organizations, my first just experience, like actually diving deep into UCF that first fall. So let's talk about Black UCF. That's what we called it. That's what I think they still call it. And it is the Black organizations that are leading the Black population. I was a part of Black UCF. I was definitely a influential leader, or whatever you want to call it, in Black UCF. I was involved in 5 different organizations at UCF. My first organization was the Black Female Development Circle. We call it BFDC. And I always said my bridesmaids are from BFDC, and it just so happens that my current bridesmaids, my 3 bridesmaids, outside of my sister, are from BFDC. So I didn't meet one of them in BFDC, but my other 2 bridesmaids I met in BFDC. And the other one is an incorporator of BFDC. So that organization was actually the organization that did the UCF week. And that UCF week, there was a representative from BFDC there doing tabling, and she was like, "Hey, you should come to our summer general body meeting, just to get to know us and things like that. And also we'll have a lot of different things in the fall." So I'm like, absolutely, Black Female Development Circle. If I go to UCF, I'm going to go there. And I literally went there. My first meeting, it was phenomenal. Like, I love just how I was just enamored by the Black women and them dressed professionally in their heels, in their skirts, in their slacks, in their polos. It was just amazing to see that. And then also being in the room with other Black young freshmen, sophomores, seniors, so it was great just seeing Black women on this PWI campus. Like, there's nothing but, white people around you, and you are able to go into a space where you feel safe to be yourself. And I was just super excited. Like, I went to every meeting as a freshman. Every meeting. It was on Tuesdays. I think they're still on Tuesdays. Every single meeting I was there. And I really loved the membership portion of BFDC. It was hot topics. It was, what do y'all think about this? And I think her name was Aja or Ajna. It started with the A with the J in it, and she was tea. Like, she always came. She was like almost like a reporter. She would give us some tea. She would give us some little motivation. She would get us talking, interacting, connecting, and so that next literally that next year I ran for membership chair. I was like, I love what she does. I can do this. I enjoy it. And people really enjoyed me being membership chair. I met a lot of different members, throughout the different time when I was membership chair. And I was so efficient with being membership chair. I had papers. I had literally a binder of attendance papers because there was a structure with membership where you had to, attend a certain amount of events to attend retreat at the end of the year, which was like that sweet treat at the, when the semesters are ending. So it was, I'm OCD. I keep everything very organized. So I had my binder with me, making sure, oh, you're here. I'm checking you off. I'm making sure the members feel welcome, making sure they're paying their dues. So, and then I'm meeting other women. And the first two women that I really got close to was Marsha and Deanna. And they used to take me places. They were older than me. All of my friends are older than me for the most part. And they used to take me places. They used to like, girl, get in the car. And I'm like, no, like I was not the type to ask for a ride. My parents never had me ride with other people. They picked me up. My dad picked me up wherever I am. He's coming. So I was not the type to ask for a ride. And they made me feel so comfortable. They went with me to, just to go study or, just to go to a Q party, whatever, and we will not insert the video that I have, but it was a grand time and I felt so safe with them. And obviously they began to get to their senior year and like we still remain close. But yeah, that was one of the first, BFDC was the first organization that I joined the executive board and everything. And simultaneously, I also was introduced to the Black Student Union. The Black Student Union is exactly what it's, what the name is. It's the union of the Black student body that wants to really just make change and continue to do the work and the service. And I remember I went to a few Black Student Union meetings and the president at the time, her name is Ruth. She like pulled me to the side. She was like, hey, stay after the meeting. And I'm like, sure. And I had been vocal in the different topics and the different things that were happening within the campus and in our political climate and things like that. And she was like, hey, I need you on my board next year. And I'm like, girl, what position? Like, we have been able to build a decent, like just in passing relationship, but she was very forward. And she was just like parliamentarian because you get these people together, like, and I'm a very strong, voice in the room, so I was like, okay. And the parliamentarian at the time, I didn't really know what her role just, was, but I stepped into it and they knew order in this court. So that was the second role that I took on as a sophomore. So my freshman year, I had jumped right out the gate, joining those two organizations. And actually my first semester at, technically my first full fall semester, I chaired the Miss Woman of Excellence pageant for the Black Female Development Circle. I have no problem literally putting myself out there. And they're like, oh, we need pageant chairs. And I'm like, okay, like, what does that entail? And it's always been another woman just like, well, maybe you should do it. Maybe you should go. And I'm just so glad I had that experience because being a grown adult now and seeing how nasty and how horrible we treat each other, I'm so glad that I had those experiences in BFDC and BSU where other black women saw me and they said, girl, go. Like that girl, go mentality is what is needed. Like it is what is needed. So, those are the two organizations that I joined executive boards for, and the other organizations that I softly started courting was the National Council of Negro Women. I was a member for about 2 years. I did a lot of community service with with them, went to their meetings, and I remember I had a friend and also a soror. She ran for membership chair of NCNW, and I had ran for membership chair of BFDC. So we were like super excited to like push each other like in that next step, as we went into the next year. And then I was a part of NAACP. Actually, the chapter at UCF came back the year that I started, and there was an AKA. Her name is Jada, who actually was a part of bringing back NAACP to the to the actual campus. And I was at their very first meeting when they started it back, and I'm like, I'm joining, I'm there, I am a part of the community now. And I didn't necessarily seek going, on their board and things like that, but I constantly volunteered with them, did volunteering with like their mentorship, at a community center and things like that. So that was super exciting because I knew that I wanted to also make political change and just be a part of those conversations beyond just BSU, but actually like geared change and things that we could like do in the community and on campus. And the last organization is Project Spit. So Project Spit was a poetry, spoken word, I would say music. A lot of musicians were within that club. And we did performances, slams. A lot of people in there, the organization did slams. And if the Black UCF needed a performer, they would reach out to Project Spit and they would do performances. So I've done spoken words for like the Sigmas. I did spoken word for my actual, the pageant that I chaired. I end up having to join the pageant last minute. And I did a spoken word, I did modeling, I did dancing, and I just did a skit actually of all of my talents because I couldn't pick one because what? I'm talented. But yeah, so that was fun. Like that was super fun. And that was the organization that I could just be my theater kid self. They were very theatrical. We would just sit and rap. They would just put on music and we would freestyle all night long. They would just freestyle and I would just be there just like vibing. I felt so free with them. I felt so free. Not saying I didn't feel free with other organizations, but I felt free. So that was amazing. Project Spit, I love y'all. But yeah, I never did any board or any like things like that, but it was great to be a part of that. So those are my college organizations, outside of Greek life and things like that. BFDC, I did grow into assistant director, which is vice president, and then I did become the director, which is the president. So I just want you to notice the trend of anything that I do, where I end up. So at the top, okay. But yeah, that was an experience. It was a lot, and I felt like BFDC did grow me to understand conflict within women, conflict within Black women, how people have different levels of commitment. And I have always been a super committed person. Like when I do something, I am all in, like all in. And in college, I was no different from now, and I'm all in. So I really established my stance on people that took positions and weren't all in. So that's where the conflict came most of the time for me, and sometimes my delivery. Yeah. So I've worked on it. I'm working on it. But yeah. Um, but let's talk about my friends. My friends are so beautiful. First of all, let's start there. They are trailblazers. I know I used to see in BFDC Cassie, my friend Cassie, my friend Terica. At the time, they weren't like my close friends, but they would come in with their big ass book bags, and Terica with that big red jacket. No, it's so hot in Florida. She had a jacket all the time because it was cold in the Union. And they were health majors, so that they were always studying. They could not commit to meetings every week. And I remember when my friends Taylor and Jerica ended up transferring to UCF, and they had both been at different schools. And like my friend Taylor had chaired like different things, and Jerica, like I was at all of her awards. Like one thing Jerica gonna do is she gonna pass a class, she gonna take a class. She is scholarly. So when she started, just winning different awards or getting recognized for different things, like I'm there. Like my friend Taylor, she was like so stressed over pageant and the different events that were going on in BFDC, and she would call me and come over and just ask me about it. And she actually participated in the pageant and she won. And man, like I think that's what sparked the love of our friend group. Bree like was there, and she was always the life of the party. She's our baldy of the group, so she always had like her hair dyed, whether it was pink, real cute, real tea. Like we were a dancing group of friends. We would always dance, do battles. We loved to swim. Like, and when we went out, we had a time. Like I know a Four Local hated to see us. Man, I don't know if we could drink those at this time, but I just remember, and I think one of my best birthdays, still to this day, with the exception of last year, was me with my friends at a Q party. And it wasn't even about the Qs, it was about the love. Like, it was about, man, y'all celebrated me. We out, we drunk, we having a good time. Like, these women, like even Kaylin and Victoria were, like softly, like, in BFDC, and not in the friend group, but now like we're super close. And all of these women, they're constantly on my social media because what? Love is love. Um, I love y'all. I love y'all down. And y'all made my college experience one that I will never forget. And I'm so excited to share this wedding with y'all, to share my marriage with y'all, to share my future babies with y'all, to share my billions with y'all. Like I love y'all down, and I will literally com- commit over y'all. Okay, so let's just yeah. But yeah, I love y'all down. So that's just a little insight about my friends, organizations. We're gonna get into a little tea time about the men of college. Not too much, just a few, and some of my thought processes with just how I approached relationships and men and like stuff like that. So yeah. All right, let's get into a little tea with the men. Um, yeah. So one, let's start. I did not leave high school with a boyfriend. I did not enter college with the little boo thing. But I did enter college with a friend that was a part of the club that was in high school, and like every day, especially over the summer, we talked. Like we talked every single day. And we just built that relationship. And it just so happened his brother was on the phone, and again we were in similar, we were in the same like friend club group for theater, and like we would talk all the time. And when you talk to somebody all the time, you just think it's time to take things to a different level. So he confessed that he liked me and things like that. And I'm like, look, I'm in school and I don't have a car to come see you. It wasn't that, oh, hey, I'm in college, I want to be free and be that person. It was just like, hey, like, is that any even going to be sustainable if we go down that road? And it wasn't, So I just, when I would come back to that side of town, I would see him. And when I would be over in college, I would do me and chill. We weren't in a relationship or nothing, but I will circle back on, you know, high school, kind of, entering college, dude, a little bit later. I do want to talk about like, it's funny because, when women or men say I have a roster. When I got to UCF, I immediately wanted a football player. I'm like, I just want a football player just so I can go ahead. We can talk, we can get married, and that'd be the end of it, and he'll go to the NFL and I could just be a rich wife and, run my businesses, he don't gotta spoil me too much, but he better spoil me. So I'm kind of trying to like replay my parents' love story, whatever. Um, I looked at the roster, few prospects, football roster that is. Um, and I'm like, okay, cool. This is what I'm coming into early as a freshman. I'm like, okay, these guys they're cool. Like where the linemen at that I know is gonna like big girls. I saw a few. I'm like, okay, they cool, whatever. And there was one in particular that remember seeing, and I actually saw him during summer. And I'm like, okay. And I used to always see him walking the same route. And, obviously, I'm sure he would see me walking the same route. So I'm like, okay, he's probably like training, practice, whatever. And then I went to like a Knights rave. Our Knights is a the UCF mascot. So it was like our rave party, and it was a good, clean fun. No drinking, no nothing there. It was like on campus, and I saw him, and we danced, and I was like, "Don't let me put this booty on you." You know what I'm saying? We exchanged numbers. He asked for my number, and I remember looking him up. So I remember scoping you out, sir. I know all your stats. I know how much you weigh, how much you bench. So cool. He came over to hang out a few times. I went over his dorm to hang over a few times, and but I knew he had a girlfriend in high school that they came to college together. And then when I asked him about it when we first hung out, he was like, no, it didn't work out. And I'm like, but I see y'all went to prom together. In my mind, I'm like, okay, you got like one of them high school sweetheart relationships. I don't know how deep we gonna get, but when people have a history with people, child, you know what I'm saying? You know how people like, they gonna always love their baby mama. I'm like, he gonna always love that girl. And I thought she was really pretty. So I'm like, man, this little girl, he gonna find his little way back. But I'm gonna enjoy my time. But yeah, he was super sweet, great guy. Nothing came from it. Nothing came from it. It was just like we would keep in touch and stuff like that. Maybe flirt every now and then. But I remember like he was super respectful over my virginity. Like he did not pressure me in giving him my virginity and stuff like that. And we'll have a whole nother conversation about virginity and the guy that I was talking to at the time. I'll call him Brownie. Let's just call him Brownie. And I'll just give a little insight into the story that's going to be in the other episode, like sidebar episode. But Brownie kind of forced his way into something that I had never done before. So it really took that special moment away from me that I had to recreate for myself. Just with a guy that I trusted, a guy that I actually, felt was I was comfortable with. But I say this because you can have such positive experiences with one man and have such questionable and negative experiences with, you know, another man, and it could be in literally the same room where someone respected you, honored your body, and was like, look, I ain't gonna pressure you, versus I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. So women, I am sorry if you've ever been put in a situation in college specifically where you felt uncomfortable, where you felt like you had to, where you felt like if you didn't, you were in danger, where you felt like I shouldn't have, where you felt like this nigga got me fucked up. He just you willingly did it and he just had you messed up. Like I just apologize. And I ask you to take your power back because it was a very low, interesting moment. But it obviously didn't deter me from being a bad bitch. Period. But yeah, so I will talk about this one white boy. I the Tinder era was so crazy in college because you would meet people one night on Tinder, you swipe whatever, and you could hang out with them the next day. This was a new concept, okay? I know nowadays everybody on every app and Bumble and Black People Meet and kissingthefeet.com, but it was just very interesting when this white boy came over. Like, I was laying down, he's chilling, and I turn around. This man ends up on top of my bed, like literally standing on the bed. And I think he had some shoes like on or socks on. And I'm like, get down. Child had started undressing, standing up. And I'm like, I'm about to call the cops on your ass. So I literally swung my door all the way open because obviously we were in like a dorm room and I had an individual room and I didn't live with anyone like in that room, but I had other suite mates that were nearby, like literally in the same apartment. Or I swung that door open so quickly and I was just like, get out. Like, literally go ahead and get out before I call the authorities. I have my phone and I'm already out the room because I'm like, how dare you come here undressed and you on top of my bed, sir? What is going on? But that just goes to show you, y'all gotta be careful. Y'all gotta be careful what is going on around here. But college is interesting. It is interesting with men and women and relationships. I did, I'll call him musically, had a friend that I met. I actually met him on Tinder and he was real chill. Like those like chill guys that's just too cool for school, like just real chill, and once he got out of his shell, I realized, man, this dude is dope. Like, he was really dope, and I hung out with him for probably a year and a half, like, just us talking. Again, I still had Mr. Man that was in high school, that I would see every now and then. But, I just really enjoyed Musically's company, and we used to hang out. He used to make music, and he's a really great producer. And I would just see him make beats and then make those beats and rap on those beats. And, like I said, I was a part of Project Spit. So I loved, just music and seeing it be composed, and I like rapping, so he over here writing, I'm over here freestyling. I like to freestyle just randomly and pop my shit. So that was a great relationship, and we had ended up like stopped talking for a little bit. Came back, talked a little bit more. Nothing like came from it, but like big or anything like that. But I think that was one of the most just genuine friendships that I made with a man, you know, and it was just good, clean fun, good, clean, just us, in our artsy, realm, and I feel like I vibe with people more when I'm in that artistic space sometimes, because everything is business and, standard operating procedures and bylaws and all that bullshit. But yeah, like, men are interesting, and I'm just so glad that I grew up with the man in my life, my father, and I'm so happy to be with my like fiance, because they are such good examples of men. But I'm still glad that I dated and went out and stuff like that. That's just a few stories from college, and I know the high school guy. We had been like just dealing with each other for years. Like, I moved him in a new apartment. Like, he ended up moving. I'm like, man, I'm gonna help you out. Like, let me help you. Let me transport some stuff. I ain't seen no money though. What? Girl, city girls was out. What? I ain't sending no money. But just helping him move and helping him establish himself. But he wasn't shit. And he really treated me like shit, now that I think about it. And sometimes I used to talk to my deuce about this so often. She was like, man, our standards on the floor. I was like, yeah, the bar is rolling on the floor. And she was like, she laughed about it. But sometimes you start to think so low of yourself, especially in college, when you're not the typical like whatever, and people don't typically go for you or hide you or hit you up after the fact. But when you think so low of yourself sometimes, or when you have those vulnerable moments, you let people do whatever, And it was moments where I remember this guy, I was talking to this other gentleman. We were all at a social, and I was on the balcony, and this guy, he was interested in me, and his friend was on the balcony with me, and it was us three just talking. And the guy that knew me from campus, he was like, man, Desiree, you walk different. Like, I see you in the meetings. He had saw me in some of the Black Student Union meetings, and he was like, man, you just walk different. You are different. Like, you show up different. You dress very nice. Like, he was just giving me just really nice compliments. And the guy that was interested in me, that was on the balcony that evening, he was like, man, well, I really want to get to know you. I really want to talk to you. I really want to, let's exchange, numbers and stuff. And sometimes it does take other people to remind you, like, you are that girl. You are that guy, because you'll be dealing with somebody from high school that ain't on shit, and you have people that are actively observing you and want to talk and get to know you, and you kind of still looking back. Stop looking back for your turn to a pillar of salt, boo. Okay, I think that's right. If it ain't, look, I'm in Bible college. I'm working on it. Is it stone or salt? Lord help me. I don't know. I'm not failing Bible college right now. But okay, back to real college. Well, not real college, but back to typical college, American college, Yeah, so that's the men or whatever. Just a few, not every man. I had my food buddy that would buy me food. I was like, yeah, it's fat girl fantasy. But yeah, I had a okay run in with the guys, and I'm glad that I didn't become one of those people, that was always in a man's face. Thank the Lord that didn't happen. But, we're gonna get into a little bit of Zeta, how I became one, what I just all of the things, coming into it, and we will have our next episode on Zeta completely. But I want to, get into at least how I started my journey on seeking Zeta. So, Zeta, Phi Beta, sorority incorporated. Okay. Let's go. So I'm not gonna get into everything. Like I said, that'll be next episode. But I do want to let y'all know kind of my journey on like even deciding Zeta. Both of my parents are a part of Greek letter organizations. My mother is a part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and my father is a part of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. I come from a line of, educated, men and women, and my parents had a lot of influence over me and my decisions because of just who they were. And growing up, my mom, she was Delta down, honey. Okay. I'm talking involved in service and like really, really like when they have a show, we would travel to her to UCF. They have a week, we there. And after a while, even my father was the same way. Like he would make sure, when they would have their turkey drive, he would give out even more turkeys to their daycare center. Like, they were so involved, and all of my uncles were the Sigmas. Like, that's what it was. So I knew coming into college that I wanted to be like a part of a Greek letter organization. Specifically, my mom was like, Delta is the only way, and you better not be an AK. There's no pink and green in this house. You better not, you better not, you better not. That was the only thing that I knew. You better not. Okay. Cool. Get there. Get to UCF, right? And my experience with just going to a Greek expo, my very first Greek expo, I was greeted by a Zeta and who was president at the time. And then I was greeted by a Kappa who was the vice president at the time. And the Zeta had asked, like, hey, do you want any cookies? Did you want anything or whatever? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll take some cookies. And then after they did their spiel, they did their roll call, then they moved into just tabling. So we could go to different tables. And I knew just from some of my training per se of like approaching Greek life, I knew you don't go directly to a table, or you be discreet about it, or you don't go with someone all the time. You just try to be as discreet as possible. So I took the approach of going to every table just to table. I didn't want to, give off the wrong impression. I just went by each table just to see, give everybody a chance. And the first table I went to was the Sigma Gamma Rho table. And she was so nice. She was very genuine, very nice. And I'm like, okay, like I didn't hear much about Sigma Gamma Rho, but I was like, oh my gosh, she's so nice, very, very beautiful, very nice. Next table was the Zeta table. And I met a young lady, her name is Angelica, and she was a social work major, and so was I. And I know this episode I didn't talk about academics because I chose my major, and once I was a social work major, that was it. Like, I was like, oh, I don't have to take a second language and I can learn about people? Bet. So She was a social work major, and she was like, "Oh, hey, here's a flyer. Tell me about you." She was just very welcoming. And then she asked me like, "Well, what's your major? Where are you from?" And I was like, "Well, I'm a social work major." She was like, "Look, give me that flyer." She wrote down her name, her number, her email. She said, "You text me if you need any books, if you need anything." And remind you, I'm a freshman. I don't need no books yet. I'm still taking writing, public speaking, like math classes, statistics, like. So she didn't even have to do that, and I will always remember it was the informational flyer she gave me. She wrote on the back of it. I always remember that in experience. And then I went to the Delta table, and it was maybe like 5 or 6 of them instead of like the SG row and data table was only one at the time, like one at that table for each of those. And I remember it was 3 Deltas standing there, and I'm like, oh, I need to straighten up. Like, I need to get right. I need to be very poised. I need to be efficient. And I ended up just reaching my hand out. I said, "Hi, my name is Desiree Davis," just to shake their hand. And they looked at my hand. They were like, and I was like, damn, okay. And then there was it was a short Hispanic girl. I remember, I think she was the ace of her line. She was very nice. She was like, "Oh, hey, what's your name?" Da, da, da. But that experience, the 3 of them looked at me and was like, "The fuck?" And I'm like, I don't know, y'all. I'm just trying to introduce myself. And I was like, that really was like, okay, whatever. Went to the AKA table. I was a little turned off by that experience, but it was like, whatever. Went to the AKA table. She didn't really seem like she wanted to talk to nobody, but it was cool. Whatever. I went to another Greek expo maybe like a semester and a half later, and I was like, well, I really had a great impression from the Zeta that I met. So I'm like, I just want to learn more, see more about the ladies. And at that time, fall 16, they had came out, and I was like, ooh, they would wear their shirts together. They would come out together, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're lit, like for Zeta. So I wanted to just, again, at Greek Expo, same approach, but just not going to the AKA table or the SGRO table. I just went to Zeta and the Delta table. Went to, and again, I had already done my research, like, of course, with Delta, but I'm like, my grandmother, my father's mother was a Zeta. And my cousin was a Zeta. So I have blue and white in my family, and I have red and crimson cream in my family. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to the Zeta table, and I'm going to go to the Delta table. I'm just going to observe, meet the ladies, and keep it going. Went to the Zeta table, same very positive experience. They was like, hey, if you would like information from us, you can give us your email, stuff like that. And I was like, sure, and then went to the Delta table, and I was just like, giving, just approaching the table or whatever. And I had like just a more recent experience. It was someone running for homecoming queen, and her name was Courtney. And Courtney was so nice. She was the Delta she was running, and then there was a Kappa that was running, Kevin, who actually won. And I had met her during her homecoming, and she was just such a beautiful soul. So I'm like, you know what? I'm happy to be going. Let me go to this Delta table just to see like what's up, because I've seen my mom give her life, to this. So I go to the table, and I'm just like, hi, talk to a young lady. Just wanted to get to know her, and I was just like, hi, can you tell me like, what's some of your favorite things about, your organization? And she was like, well, you need to do your research, and you need to, you know, check on your own, and like, you should not come here not knowing your stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, my mother came through your chapter, and I know a lot about Delta actually, and your chapter, but I didn't mean to offend you. She looked at me like, oh shit. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Your mother? Who's your mother? And I said, um, it's okay. You don't have to worry about it. I'm sorry that I offended you. And that day I knew Delta was not for me. I'm not saying nothing about they performed their ass off. They were performing and they were kicking ass and taking names. But how they showed up was really interesting to me. But how the Zetas showed up, every time they would speak at Greek Expo, they were like poised. Like they were together. The chapter events were. I started going to some chapter events and things like that, and of course, I resonated with the lead founder, Arizona Cleaver Stemmons, and she was a social work major and graduated with her social work degree. And I'm like, okay, like this is something I have in common. And okay, the other founders are educators as well, and my family. And I'm like, wow, community conscious, action oriented. Like, and when I say action oriented, I would see the women of Zeta on that campus doing things. Every person on Fall 16, except for maybe one, was involved, was in a organization. And I was like, damn, these women are on it. And the history was already a selling point. I didn't need to be sold on the history or being a part of the blue and white legacy. Sometimes the deciding factor, that last deciding factor, is like the chapter, is like that experience. And I'm like, first of all, I got offered cookies. I got an email and, oh hey, I'll give you books. Like, it's about how you take care of people. And I said, if women like this are in an organization like that, I want to learn more. And the entire process of seeking Zeta, which was coming to events, making sure my resume is together, making sure I'm dressed appropriately, making sure I'm on time, making sure that I am put together when I'm speaking and I'm not over speaking or over talking people. Like, the process just seeking Zeta grew me, I was excited to go to informational every semester after that, because every informational, I knew we would do an activity where it was interactive. They weren't just preaching in like, oh, we do this, we do that, and what about you? Like, it was very, very nice experience with them and the advisors at the time that were in the room. So it was a no-brainer, you know what I'm saying? Once, like I said, after the history, learning about the history, and like, okay, I get to join the blue and white family, and the chapter is showing me that there are Zeta women that are so extraordinary. Like, it's time for you to join the movement. So with anything I do, I end up where? On top. Okay, I was invited to membership, and I remember spring 2018 came out. I was distraught. I cried because I thought I was gonna be on that line, but no, it wasn't my time. And boy, I went to their probate, and just the singing, I like, and it actually was like some Greeks sitting over on the side, some deltas, it was some sigmas over here, it was like the zetas that was sitting in front of me, and I'm just a GDI goddamn individual, just like observing. And again, I'm seeking zeta. At this point, I am like, oh Lord, I can't wait, and when is my time, when is it my time? And when they were like, my heart and my soul, I was like, when I say I that song hit so hard, I was in, I was like tearing up because I wanted it so bad. I wanted it so bad because I'm like, I know I can bring so much to this organization, and I know they have grown me already, so I can't even imagine what they're going to do when I'm a part. I saw that probate. It was so beautiful. Shout out to Spring 18, to all of them, because it was such a beautiful probate. And I came out fall 2018. Boom. Surprise. So, yeah. That's the story. That is literally the story. Those are real experiences. Um these people are real people, real living, breathing people. And if I said your name, the president of NPHC was Ashley. So thank you for the cookie, sis. And like I said, Angelica. I remember seeing Shayna and Amanda in NCNW. You know, yeah, it was just really, really, really exciting time. And yeah, after that, when I became a Zeta, I still remained on the BFDC board. I became president that year. I didn't do the BSU board, but I did, for a semester, I did parliamentarian for Zeta. Instead of for BSU, I did it for Zeta for a semester. And then that next semester, I ran for president of my undergraduate chapter. And yeah, like I said, where do I end up? On the top. So, next episode will definitely be about my Zeta journey. We'll pick up from here. But that's college, man. Like, this is just all the different experiences that I've had. When I graduated from the university, and I also graduated from the actual school of social work. So I had two graduations. And it was like in 2021, so COVID was like still around. So we had a regular like small graduation for my college, like for social work. And then for UCF, we had like graduation where you had to schedule to come get your pictures and stuff like that. So it's fine. I don't want to stay and be in commencement, but different experience. But I'm super grateful for UCF. Shout out to everyone that I was around at UCF. I really appreciate y'all. My BSU family, shout out to Darisha. We were on the board together for a few years. She's such an amazing friend, amazing person, true trailblazer. Like I said, all my other friends before. Yeah, like UCF really did that. Like from the parties to we had a good time. Domino's pizza every week, man. Like, if you know, you know. But yeah, so bye, y'all.